Welcome to Flow with Arman Assadi. If you're looking at the YouTube video right now, I'm sitting in a I'm sitting in a resort in French Polynesia. I am currently on the island of Moorea. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is right next to Tahiti and Bora Bora, which is where I'm spending my time right now between those three places. I recorded this episode in mid-November of 2020, November 17th to be exact, with my good friend Justin Donald. And why am I in French Polynesia? Well, I was freaking out and I needed to spread my wings. As many of you know, I was an incessant world traveler before COVID. And I decided that this was the place to go. I actually literally decided on Friday, went and got my COVID test in LA, drove up to Orange County, I should say, drove back to San Diego, packed, went out for a dinner with friends, got up at 5 a.m. and left for Tahiti. So that is how crazy I am, and that is how I make my decisions. But I am so glad I made this decision. And anyway, I'm out here, and I had this interview scheduled with Justin, and I'm so glad we made it happen. Wi-Fi was a little spotty, but it mostly worked out. I don't think we have any issues in the recording, and apologies in advance if there are any. I don't think there are. But I am so excited about this episode. I just wrapped the interview with Justin. What a guy. Justin Donald is the author of the upcoming book, The Lifestyle Investor, The 10 Commandments of Cash Flow Investing for Passive Income and Financial Freedom. When you hear a title like that in a world of finance and financial freedom and cash flow investing, there are a lot of people that are full of shit. Justin Donald is the real deal. I have talked to him before this interview multiple times, digging into his 10 commandments, who he really is and what he stands for. This conversation that I had with him today solidifies the integrity of this person. He is the person that I truly believe you and I and all of us should be learning from when it comes to financial freedom. We covered the topics of the value of freedom, the impact that that's had on his mind, his psyche, his joy, his peace, his happiness, and dug into the actual tangible stuff, the concrete stuff of his 10 commandments, the types of deals he looks for, and the impact that that's had personally on his life and how you can get started. So this is a really exciting episode. And it's exciting for me because I have been making all of these very disparate, interconnected investments, but there hasn't been this set of criteria to really bring it together to make sure that the investment you make is as low risk as possible, that you get your cash flow as quickly as possible, that you get your principal back as quickly as possible. And as you may know as well from listening to other episodes, especially the Tipsy Talk ones where we talk about money and we talk about freedom being the ultimate driver, like this is so important in so many ways, especially to entrepreneurs and creative people. So buckle up for an incredible, incredible episode. Make sure you are subscribed to the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, wherever you're listening. That's the most important thing. And for access to the show notes and everything that we talk about here today, head to armanassadi.com or arman.blog. And last but not least, if you want my flow kit, this is a nice, long, beautiful PDF that I put together of all of my favorite tools, resources, hacks, services that I use to achieve more flow in my life. All my favorite stuff. Just send me a text, hashtag FlowKit in the message to 619-825-2595. And that's literally sending a text directly to me, and I'll auto send you back access to this little secret flow kit. All right, it's time. Without further ado, the one and only Justin Donald.
You know, I just feel blessed, man. I've got great people in my world supporting me and great people that I can have really cool, intellectual, deep conversations with. So I feel great.
Have you been doing a lot of, thanks for asking. I'm doing great. I'm literally in an island of French Polynesia right now. Not one that many people know, Moorea. And it's right next to Bora Bora and Tahiti. It's kind of off the beaten path. It's insane. I'm living everybody, like someone's dream right now. My own dream combined with so many people's dream. It's crazy. I just got tired of being at home all year, and I looked into what places I could safely go. And everyone who gets on this plane has to do a COVID test. Everyone who's here has to do a COVID test every 3 days in the country.
Whoa.
So I was like, this is a great place. I'm going to come here. I feel good. And yeah, I had to get out. Yeah.
That's so cool. I was just looking at a place. One of my friends is doing a trip to Maldives,
Oh, yeah,
and
that's
so whenever I think of like the most beautiful and scenic, like ocean, water, huts on on wood, decks out in the
yep,
middle of the water. I mean, I think of like Tahiti, Bora Bora, all the surrounding islands,
exactly.
but the Maldives is right there with it, and I mean, just three of the most beautiful locations anywhere on the planet.
Oh, it really is, man. I honestly, when I arrived, because with Instagram, everything has that Instagram filter. So you wonder if it's really going to be what you thought. And it really is. You should check out my Instagram story because I posted that exact scene you're describing. Like the
I
huts
love
on
it.
the water. It's where I am right now. Like it's crazy.
That's so cool. I will
Well,
check it out.
dude, you know what? Like, I'm glad we started there because what we are ultimately talking about is freedom. And that is an innate human desire. And it's not at the top of the value list for everybody, but dude, for me, it is number one. It is absolutely number one. And you are a person who has been on a quest to master the art and science of lifestyle investing, AKA money, AKA freedom. I think that's what we're really talking about today. And I've been excited for this, dude, because I've been wanting to catch up with you. And the way how I approach these like it's just you and I having this conversation and me unpacking this. But I also, this time, I'm going to have it in the back of my mind that there are so many people that want exactly what you're talking about. And there's so many people out there that are full of shit. So many people have been hurt, misled, scammed, and I know you. And so I'm very excited because what you are delivering and talking about and have done, like actually done over and over and over again, is a real, attainable, sustainable version of freedom that is accessible to more people than they realize. So I just want to start there because I don't know if you agree with that, if it's ultimately about freedom for you, but I have a feeling that it is up there for you as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And Armand, it's one of those things where people, I think, get lost in trying to make so much money or have such a lifestyle, but that's not what it's about. Buying your time back is truly the greatest treasure that you're ever going to find, because with your time, that's where you generate all your happiness, and you're able to be intentional, rather than going through life on autopilot where you're in reaction mode all the time. It's like, oh, I respond to this, I respond to that, I react to this, I react to that. I would much rather be in a place where my time is owned by me and I get to make decisions that best support my family, myself, my health, the experiences that I want to have. Of course, finances are a part of it, but I
Mm-hmm.
would tell you that having freedom of time is more valuable than anything. In fact, I outline this in my book that to me, the most important freedom you have is time. It's having that autonomy. It's having full agency over your life, your time, the way that you show up, who you do life with, and
Mm-hmm.
living a purposeful, intention forward reality.
I couldn't agree with you more. It is all about creating leverage in our lives to create a few right. Um, and if this disconnect thing happens, we'll just keep rolling, but I'll clean it up if the internet's unstable. That's the price I pay for the lifestyle, I guess, sometimes. You know, this
I'll
this
take it every
aspect,
day of the week.
exactly. This aspect of making a few good decisions in order to win back our time, which is our number one asset. I think this is one of the most important conversations in the world, Justin, the most important topics, because when you look at fulfillment for a human being, that's all we really have: the ability to take care of ourselves, to have our time, and to take care of those around us. So with that said, let's just say I agree. Anyone who's listening is like, yes, that is also what I want. I know the value of time. I'm reacting to other people's agendas. I mean, how many successful CEOs do you know, Justin, who have no freedom whatsoever, no time? Their entire life is spent reacting to the needs, wants, and desires of other people.
Unfortunately, I know a tremendous number of them. And I guess I should say, fortunately, I do, because that's also a lot of what I do is I work with, high net worth individuals, and I help them and I teach them and I coach them. But unfortunately, more so than that, because more important than anything I do and or any service that I have, it's a shame that so many people have the golden handcuffs. They're truly chained to their business, and their business owns them. And it's funny
Yes.
because most entrepreneurs, and by the way, I'm guilty of this. I've been here before.
Me
You
too.
leave the job to have autonomy and have your own business and have freedom and all this, but then your business, as you scale it and as you experience more success, it begins to own you again, and even more so than your job owned you. Because at least your job, you could shut it off at a certain point in time. But when it's your business, your
Yes.
demands, your livelihood, your reputation, then you're a greater slave to the business than you were to the job.
No,
Now,
you
it
are a
comes with
full
greater perks.
slave. It is indentured servitude.
Yeah,
It's bad. I've been there
right.
too. It's
It
bad.
comes with greater perks. Like you might make more, you might, have more ego pumping, and, it feels good,
Hmm.
but that doesn't change the fact that it's just a different, it's a different mousetrap. You're in a
Hmm.
better rat race, but it's still a rat race.
I was talking to my friend Nick Urbani. You would love this guy. I got to introduce you. I had him on episode 2. He's a very successful entrepreneur. One of his main businesses is a multi-million dollar e-commerce business called Bubbly Bell, and we talk about these things all the time. I had a moment a couple weeks ago where I said to him, I think that actually what happened to me is I traded one trap for another. And I didn't realize it all along, that the reason that this company with this big vision, I'm talking about my company, Project Evo, that is my baby, this beautiful mission. I love it. And here I am killing myself for that business that ended up trapping me. And thank God today I have brought in the right people, the right partnerships to change that. And I'm on my way to fully experiencing the benefits of that, which is remarkable, where I am the owner. I am seeing things from the outside in instead of being stuck growing the business. And then I went through that phase of, well, no, Arman, you can't just say from day one that you have to work on the business, not in it. That's not realistic. But then 5 years goes by, and you're stuck working in the business. So this is so relatable for me too, man. And it sounds like for you too. So
Yeah.
obviously this happens to many people. What are some of the paths to creating time freedom, and why did you choose the path that you are currently on, and what is it?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpackage in this. This is a really fun question. All right, let me do my best to attempt to answer all these, because I feel like there are 3 different ways that we can go. I kind of want to start first with, time freedom, just the whole idea of that being the better and biggest freedom, because let's just say most people that haven't experienced financial success, they chase the dollar until they've at least arrived somewhere, right? And what happens is, once you arrive, it feels good in that moment, but you need more. It's just like when you buy a new car. You get this new car, it feels so good. You love cruising around town in it. You want everyone to see you in it. It's your brand new Tesla, or it's your sports car. Maybe you got something real fancy, but in a year, 2 years, 3 years, it doesn't have that same feel. And it's the same thing with earning money, earning more money. There's a point in time where there is this tipping point, and enough is enough. So it's not
Mhm.
about making more money. And the only people that I don't think understand that generally are the people that haven't made money, as much money as they want to, or they just are on
Yes.
autopilot and haven't recognized that they've arrived. They've already earned more than they ever thought they
Yes.
would, but they're caught in the different
They
traps
become
we
an
talked about.
addict, and it's a form of like hedonic adaptation. I often talk about this. Yes.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so I want to, adequately, unpackage the rest of your question. So do me a favor, remind me of, I wanted to communicate that first and foremost,
Yeah.
but give me the heart of what it is
Let's
that you asked.
let's start with the yeah, because this is so big and it's so important. So I think the first layer is, what are the paths to then going into this direction of more time freedom? Let's assume that yes, time freedom is the answer. What are the different paths, and what led you to choosing your path?
Yeah, and I love this question. So there are many paths, and it kind of depends on what track you're on right now. So let's say that you're an employee or you're self-employed. Your path is going to be a little different, and it might be just replacing your income slowly but surely and not spending everything, and creating passive income to be able to step out of it. If you're an entrepreneur, and I'm sure that there are plenty of entrepreneurs listening, it's a little bit different. You might have the ability to make extreme amounts of income in short periods of time. And so you might be able to fast track it, or you can be in a position where you truly could exit your company, have a good payday, and then, choose to invest those funds.
Yeah.
The problem, though, that I see all the time with entrepreneurs is they think because they had success as an entrepreneur that they're going to be just as successful investing. And all the time I see them losing money, just tons of money. And so, a lot of entrepreneurs learn that the hard way. And so I always encourage people when they're sitting on cash to make small investments, learn about what you're doing. But any of these could be the path. The path that I took was I didn't want to increase my lifestyle expenses until my passive income would cover that increase. So in other words, I was patient. I had a good life. I wasn't sacrificing, compared to maybe the average person, but I was sacrificing compared to what I could have done based on my income. And I just didn't want that to grow until it could grow through passive income. If it grows through passive income, I think that that's great. If I have assets producing income that allow me to live a better lifestyle, as long as I'm doing all the other things in life that are important, like being charitable and helping out those that are fortunate, then I think that's great. I think if we're building something just to serve ourselves and to have a better life without that component of helping others as well, I do think that's a disservice, and I think that's a missed opportunity. So I want lifestyle to grow and get better, but not at the expense of helping others along the way.
Wow. Interesting. So in a sense, you pivoted toward this form of investing, which we'll unpack, that is income producing assets, and you did not allow your lifestyle to change from where it was at the time. So to use simple numbers, say you had a $100,000 a year lifestyle, you forced yourself to stay within that, to live within that, to support your family within that. And until your assets were producing more, you did not increase that lifestyle. And I assume that it continues to, and we talked about this before the interview, where it really gets interesting and fun is where you're producing so much on a monthly basis that you could reinvest most of it. And you hit a ceiling, like we talked about. It's like there's a ceiling of like how much a person can humanly spend in a month who's not insane, who isn't trying to live like a billionaire. Let's just say, like, there's a level, like once you have the time freedom and you're buying everything you want and you're helping those people you want and you're taking people on trips and you're donating, like what else do you want? Like there is a limit there. So is that correct? Is that essentially the philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it is. I think that there are billionaires out there that will tell you that they just want to accumulate more money. I mean, that's not my goal. That's not my mission. I don't have any desire to be a billionaire. If it ends up happening, it happens. But that's not a focus. And quite frankly, like I just think that there are too many more important things in life than how much one can accumulate. And so I don't want to belittle anyone that has accomplished this, because whoever has done it has offered great value to the world. You can't become a billionaire without having amazing value that you're offering to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people. And so I don't, that's not a slam in any way, shape, or form, but that's not my overall goal. what my passions are and what my purpose is has nothing to do with how much money I can accumulate. It has to do with owning my time and spending it in a way that brings me the most joy and creates the most impact.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So, and for me, it's with my family. I want to spend as much time as humanly possible. You know, my daughter is young and I want to see all these years. These are
mm-hmm.
developmental and very important years. But I also don't want to sacrifice, you know, big business and growing things at the expense of that relationship or the relationship with my wife. I mean, those are the most important relationships to me. So if I sacrifice those relationships just for the gain of money or a bigger business or whatever, I've lost, you know,
Yeah,
that I missed
100%.
the mission.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more, man. This is great. So let's just say, let's role play a little bit to walk through what it would look like to begin to implement this investing philosophy. You know, you're an entrepreneur, you're an employee. Let's forget like whatever that is. The idea is that they're looking to shift out of what they're doing, and they're looking to win back their time and to have freedom, and they're sitting on some cash. Um, what how I guess first question is, what is the deal that you would look for? You have a set of commandments. You don't have to go into each one of them. I can link to them. I can whatever you think is best, but maybe just general deal structure, or feel free to go into it, whatever you think is most useful. But you have a set of commandments that you use to determine if that is the deal for you, and you're very strict about that, right?
Yeah, and so let me even, you know, share the story of how this kind of came about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my book is called The Lifestyle Investor, and the subtitle is The 10 Commandments for Cash Flow Investing for Passive Income and Financial Freedom. And so my 10 commandments are my 10 criteria that I use to help me make decisions on whether I want to do an investment or not. And for a certain period of my life, those 10 commandments were a little more subconscious. I
Mm.
made decisions based on those without fully extrapolating what it was. But like, I had this ability to know if I should or shouldn't do an investment. And so it was really interesting in writing this book. And you know, in fact, the way I actually got about writing the book is a whole nother story, which we could get into if you
Mm-hmm.
want. But it was very eye-opening, because I had several discoveries that took things from the subconscious to the conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really neat process. So these commandments, you know, I had hundreds of investments, all right? And the commandments guided these. And when I look back and I lay these on top of the investments, it's like, oh, no wonder that my portfolio has done so well.
Ah,
It's because I got out of making emotional decisions and saying, ooh, that feels good, or I really like this person, I think they're going to
yeah.
do great. You know, all the things even that entrepreneurs do when they make emotional decisions versus you know, fact-based decisions. So I got away from the emotional
Yes.
stuff, and I knew what was best was to have a criteria that was quantifiable, not subjective. And that
Has to
really
be.
steered the ship.
Has to be. We are it's actually a hedge against the human psyche
Yeah, right.
of how fucked we can be sometimes with our emotions, and how it can mislead us to make so many bad decisions in life. And you need that objective criteria sometimes. It's so important. So you kind of threw in hundreds. How many investments have you made? Do you know?
Well, and I guess I should probably clarify, you know, as I say this, I have invested in a lot of companies
Mm-hmm.
where I am just a passive investor. And I've done and I've started companies. I own, you know, small percentages or large percentages in companies. So I'm still calling those investments.
Mm-hmm.
But those are a little bit different than maybe like a real estate investment, or you know, whether it's something I own directly myself,
Mm-hmm.
or whether it's something that I am a limited partner in that someone else is operating, or whether it's even a fund with, you know, hundreds of assets inside that fund.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when I say, you know, the term hundreds, or, basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to group all of my investments into, one place
Yes.
to describe them all. Because
Yes.
over the years, I've become so diversified because I don't want any concentration risk. If
Mm.
something happens, I don't want to have all my assets in all my exposure in one asset class.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of my way of grouping it together. But if I were to break it down on a spreadsheet,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in an investment group called Tiger 21, and it's a really cool kind of exclusive investment group that you have to interview to get in. There are certain minimum net worth to even be able to apply.
Mm-hmm.
But in this group, there's something called a portfolio defense, where you share your portfolio. Here's everything that I have invested in, and it's broken down.
Mm.
And so you can then get critiques from your peers on what they like, what they dislike, exposure you have, et cetera.
Ooh.
So if I lay all my investments out, they're going to break down into different classes. I'm going to have some
Yeah.
debt vehicles, some equity vehicles, some are going to be, and for my own, I have them in cash flow vehicles.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch in operating companies. We can call those private equity, and even take it a step further into franchises. We've got other businesses that I'm an advisor to. And so I have equity, but I never had to invest in that company, but I helped them scale. And so there are all these different buckets that
Mm.
exist. And so that's kind of how I sum it
What's
up.
the
But
what's the ballpark of the distribution of the types of investments? Like just, this percent and cash flow, this percent here.
yeah, I mean, the majority of what I do is cash flow,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because anything that I invest in that I would consider riskier is, and by the way, for me, I would say an equity investment is much riskier than a
Mm-hmm.
debt investment.
Hmm.
It's much riskier than a real estate investment, as long as you've done your homework. I even think that cash flow
Interesting.
investments are safer than a stock market investment.
Yeah.
If you're going to invest for the long run and you're truly not going to touch it during highs and lows when you emotionally want to, well, then I think that that's a safer way to do it. Most people can't do that. So they go in at
Mm-hmm.
the wrong time, out at the wrong time. But
Correct.
I personally don't even want to invest in the stock market with a large position. Most people have all their net worth and exposure in the stock market. I just want a fraction of it. And I want that fraction of it to be long term, so that I'm getting the largest gain that I can. And I want that investment to come from cash flow.
This is a
So
micro point that I would love to unpack, actually. Just this comparison between the stock market and your cash flow investing, because we were texting about this a little bit. To me, when I look at the stock market, I look at it as like this lazy portfolio. Like you said, long. A lot of people try to time the market. Oh, I'm going to buy, during this next crash and all this kind of stuff. But if you're really looking long, 10, 20 years, and your idea is to get to a point where your portfolio is something that you can passively live off of, versus the style of cash flow investing that you do, how do they compare? How are you, because to me, I didn't realize that the way you go about your cash flow investing is that it is a long-term deal where you're not touching things. I thought these were like perhaps little 2-year, 3-year deals, and then you need to shift into the next deal afterward. Can you unpack that a little bit?
sure. Yeah. So with the stock market, I am a fan for a long-term type of play. I do think the U.S. overall is going to do a good job. I don't think it should be the first investment.
Mm-hmm.
It can be. It most certainly shouldn't be all of your investment. That's just too much,
Mm-hmm.
concentration risk, in my opinion. But to me, I want exposure to assets that are going to grow. So I like owning assets because as money, as our supply expands,
Mm-hmm.
monetary supply, assets expand. Meaning,
Yes.
when the Fed prints more money, the assets that I own will grow in proportion to the amount of money that the Fed is printing.
Correct.
If I don't have assets, then I'm losing purchasing power. If I'm sitting in cash, my cash is being diluted. It's becoming
Mm-hmm.
less. And so I want to own assets. Now, one of the strategies that I use is I really like to invest in things and negotiate or utilize structures that allow me to pull my principal out quickly,
Right.
but still have long-term upside. So
Mm.
you can do this a lot in real estate, where you make an investment, let's say of $100,000, and it's in a value add property. Let's call it an apartment complex.
Yes.
All right. This apartment complex, they rehab it all. They increase rents. They get, new tenants in, or they just increase the rent if there are plenty of people in. Technically, I love when projects have like 90% occupancy and they literally just do it, unit by unit while there's still cash flow, and you're just, flipping people in and out. It's a lot easier to maintain it. So now you can go to the bank, you can refi that property, you can pull a whole bunch of cash out, you pay all the investors back. So now as an investor, I'm made whole. I got all my money out. I did so in a year to 2 years. And I made a return on that money, because generally there's a preferred return associated with it. So I've got all my money out, and I made, let's call it an 8 to 10% return on that hold of my money. But I still have equity in this investment. And this might be a 10-year hold, a 5-year hold, maybe it's a forever hold. And I'm going to earn distributions based on my equity in a pro rata basis. So I have all my money out of the deal. I still have equity. And now I can take that same money and invest it in another deal where I can get cash flow, and then I can get more equity. And when that is refied, I can pull it out. I can do the same thing in a debt vehicle. So let's say that there's a debt investment, and I say, hey, I'm happy to do this debt investment, but I don't want to do straight debt. I would like to, I'd like to have some sort of an incentive, a kicker, an equity kicker that I don't pay for. I just want it to be a perk of me giving you a loan. And so I get these all the time, and I'll get equity in a company. I'll have all my money out. Maybe it's a 1-year note. Maybe it's a 6-month note. Maybe it's a 2-year note. I generally don't go longer than 3 years, because I want my money back as quick as I can.
Yes.
That initial capital, because
This is one of your, sorry to jump in,
compound.
but that's one of your commandments, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. The fourth commandment is get your principal back quickly. Immediate return of principal. And so the quicker I get that back, the more investments I can get into. I can take the same money and just have it compounding in equity positions in several different investments that together hedge my risk.
Right. Right. Oh, this is so good.
But there's very little risk, Arman. If I have all my money out of the deal, even if it tanks, I still have my money back. I still made a positive return. So it's all upside, and it's all house money.
Right. Right. It's like a little cherry on top. That's a nice when you can get it. How long is the typical life cycle of the cash flow that you receive from these deals? It's a little hard to answer, I'm sure, because every asset class is so different. But I'm curious if you have a typical, if I go into this deal, I'm going to make cash flow on this for X number of years, or it's just for the span of until I get my distribution back and I expect the equity kicker I get to deliver. Like, what does your spreadsheet look like when you're thinking about these things,
So generally with an investment that has a preferred return, what they're saying is, I will give you this return before I, as the general partner, make any money. So in other words, LPs or limited partners make all the money. Or, this is same in a fund structure where you get paid first before the sponsor or the general partner makes anything up to that point. So maybe it's 8%, 9%, 10%, something around there. Could be as low as 6%. I think the highest I've seen is maybe 11% on a preferred return. And so like when you think about those deals, so you would earn a preferred return until your initial investment is paid back in full. So until that time, you get that preferred return. So every deal is a little different. So if a group can refi in 1 year, then you get your money back in a year. And you they only had to pay out, that preferred return for that 1 year. Let's say it's 2 years. Let's say it's 2 years. And you do it over 2 years to get that return. So it's a longer timeline, but now you've earned a preferred return for 2 years instead of 1 year. So each group's different. And then I have investments that I go into that are more like mailbox money, meaning I get my investment out early, but they just keep paying cash flow based on it for 10 years.
What kind of deal structure is that where the you're receiving that payment, that cash flow payment for, say, 10 years? Is that where you get that equity kicker in general? Is that where that happens?
Well, generally in real estate, as you invest, if you're investing as an LP, you're going to get some form of equity.
Mm-hmm.
And then each setup is going to be different. So after the preferred return, there's something called a waterfall, which is kind of the way that a company is going to distribute profits.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so the sponsor or the general partner is going to make a certain amount maybe after that preferred return to get caught up, or sometimes they don't, and they just make a percentage of the overall portfolio. So they might make 20%, you make 80%. It could be a 70-30. It could be, you know, a 50-50, right? It could be whatever. I've seen them all across the board. But once your preferred return is paid, you'll get preferred return until your initial capital is paid back.
Mm-hmm.
And so that will keep happening, and no one makes money except the LPs in that structure until that's back, right? You know, besides like admin fees or other fees. So it's always important to check the fees too. And these are all private real estate deals, syndications, funds that I'm kind of going through. So once you have your preferred return and you have your initial investment back, then you start the waterfall. And there's the split where both groups make their percentage. And then that is for the life, typically for the life of the hold. So that's what it looks like if they hold it for 20 years, or if they sell it in a few years, you would get your pro rata amount on the sale based on that split, based on your particular investment.
Are you familiar, Justin, with these real estate groups that go in on the apartment complexes and multifamily units, large units together as a group and leave the money and the principal in and just roll over? And it's more of a passive income style investment strategy. Are you familiar with some of these groups? Like, for example, Grant Cardone has one. There's another group called MG Properties. I don't know if you're familiar with these guys.
So I haven't looked at those deals, you know, specifically, but I mean, I see unique structures. I'm giving you what I see most of the time. I've seen all kinds of really unique structures. So it sounds like in that structure, they're taking the profits and rolling it into another purchase. And so you're foregoing your return today for the hopes that it works out on a larger scale because they're using leverage to buy. And so that all depends on how much leverage is being used. You know, is it extreme? If there's a market crash, is it too much leverage where the deal can fall apart, or is it a comfortable amount of leverage? And then, do you have the cash flow that you need right now or not? I mean, some of that is a personal preference. So it's not even that's a good deal, that's a bad deal. That's more like, right now I need cash flow, or right now I don't need cash flow and I'm willing to, you know, roll the profits.
Yes, totally makes sense. So of your various cash flow investments and the different asset classes, the different companies, the different debt versus equity deals, things like that, do you have a preferred? Like, if one just showed up in front of you, you're like, this is my baby. Like, if I could have them all be this way, I would, but I won't because of the exposure. But if I had one favorite, you know, type of deal, this is it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, see, I have so many different favorite types of deals. Okay, think about it this way. I love operating companies. And I love to invest in them as long as I'm not running them. So I can only do it if there is a strong, competent, you know, operating partner that's going to run it, that I also enjoy working with, right? So the goal is they're running it. I'm not. I'm there for advice or advisory periodically, but I'm a capital partner and I'm happy to do that. And I'm happy to share the insight that I can. Well, deals like that are really fun because I have an impact on people. I can help scale a company, which I've had a lot of experience with. There are great ways to get extra tax incentives and write-offs. So I'm not paying, you know, you can expense a lot of things in those businesses. And so, you know, some of the profit comes over a little bit more preferred, right?
Yes.
And so, and I might even have it set up as a revenue share, or I might have it set up as, an accelerated distribution schedule up to a certain period of time, meaning I get paid more until I'm paid back. And that way it can be done quickly. And then I've got, upside even when my money is out. So I love deals like that. One, for the return, but also for the impact I can have on others, helping them become entrepreneurs and getting out of the rat race. Because I remember at one point in my life when I was the sweat equity and I just wanted someone to like pour capital into me when I didn't have it, and I was willing to put in the time. I would work as much as you needed me to work. And it's neat being on the other side where now I'm the capital, and I just want to find people that are really hard workers and are willing to hustle and do what it takes to be successful. So I like that model and I love to invest that way. But at the same time, real estate has some of the most tax advantages that exist. You can do investments in real estate, and if you structure it properly and you code it, on the back end properly, you can make profit without paying any tax on it. And you can do this over your whole life. And there are mechanics in play where you can 1031 exchange or take a like kind exchange on a property and roll it into a bigger property, so that you don't have to pay taxes. So
yeah, that's what that group does too. The MG properties. Yeah, they 1031.
So I love that. I think that's fantastic. But then again, on the debt side, I love debt investing because you're first in line if anything goes wrong. So a deal blows up in a bad way, everything's going wrong, they have to liquidate. Well, you're first in line for the assets, especially if you have senior debt, which is the type of investing I like to do on the debt side. That's highly collateralized. Well, now the equity investors may not make their money back, but as a debt investor, you probably are. So each investment has its own perks. And to me, it's not which one is better. It's what is the structure of each one. And then it's having exposure to all of them. I don't want to be just in real estate, because what if something happens in real estate? I don't want to be just in, operating companies, because what if we have another pandemic and my operating companies don't operate well, So I want exposure. I just want to diversify. The first goal is, hey, get passive income to cover your bare minimum expenses and eventually your lifestyle income. And then secondly, diversify that passive income so you have multiple income streams in several different sectors so that there isn't concentration risk. And then from there, as the income grows, reinvest it into other things that provide impact, that you have expertise in, that you can give back with and you can make a difference with.
Yeah. I think also what I'm hearing is there is the objective rationality behind it, and it's like each of them, you love them so much, they're like your babies. You can't choose between your kids.
That's right.
Kind of thing. They really all have their place. So Justin, I'm not sure how much you've shared about this publicly in the past or how much you talk about this in your book, but I'm curious if you can share with people to paint a picture of what impact these decisions and this type of investing has had on your life. Anything you're willing to share about the impact on your lifestyle, the impact on your net worth, the number of deals that you're in and what that's resulted in. Because I think that is where people need a North Star sometimes to see what is possible. And you probably have your own North Star of someone that has inspired you, but you serve as such an inspiration to others. So I'm curious what you're willing to share.
Sure. Yeah, it's a fun question. And, I always want to be careful what I share, because I want to make sure that people are focused on what is most important. So it'd be really easy for me to share, financials, but that may not be the most important thing. At a certain point, having more money easily solves financial problems, but having more money isn't going to solve all your problems. If you have relationship issues, having more money doesn't fix that, and it may exacerbate it, but I remember at one point in time, I said, okay, my lifestyle, it costs me $120,000 to live. I'm $10,000 a month. And I need to figure out how to get there. Now, in order just to survive, it was $5,000 a month. So that covered my mortgage, my utilities, my food and car and, all that. So 50,000, I think it was 52,000 a year covered that. Okay. And so it was a little bit less than 5,000. So, the first mission was to get there. And actually, even before that, it was to replace my wife's income. My wife was a teacher. She was making $36,000 a year. When you take out taxes, she was probably bringing home 28,000 of that 36,000. And so the goal was, how do I replace that income? And so that was move number one. And she was able to stop. She was a teacher and did a great job at teaching. But it just doesn't create a lot of flexibility with a teacher schedule. It's a tough one. And we wanted to travel and do all kinds of stuff. So that was step one. Step two then was covering the bare minimum expenses, 52,000 a year. And then number three was getting us to our lifestyle income. And my lifestyle income fluctuated from 100 to 120,000 a year for a period of time. And so I knew if I was earning 10,000 a month, like I could just have peace of mind.
Yes.
And it would be amazing. And so that's what I worked on. And once I had accomplished that, I'm telling you, it is truly one of the most liberating feelings that I ever had, was to know that I didn't have to work, that I got to work. So by age 35, I think I had everything covered in terms of total expense, like bare minimum expenses. And by age 37, I had replaced my lifestyle. I was actually a lot higher than that 120 a year, but in the process, of 35 to 37, I was able to accomplish it. And it was really cool. And it was a great celebration. But Arman, I've got to tell you, it pales in comparison to watching how, a lot of people I've worked with in my mastermind, my private client coaches, friends, that I've been coaching for years, even before, I had this brand of the lifestyle investor.
Yeah. I love the way you answered that, Justin. Thank you, because that actually kind of goes into really, well, what is the first step that a person can take? Because there is that vision, and the first step that a person can take is think about their survival. What is the amount that I need to survive or to replace a certain income? And then from there, it's the lifestyle income. And I think for most people, it's probably in the range of the numbers you described. Most people would be very happy getting to that point and knowing that they get to work, not that they have to. So you are how old now at this stage? How many years has it been since you hit the milestone of replacing the lifestyle income?
Yeah, so I'm 40 now, and one of my dreams back years ago, I'm talking 15 plus years ago, I wrote a dreams list of 100 dreams that I had. And one of those dreams was to retire before 40. And I just wanted to know I could do it. I know I'm not the person to retire. I'm just never going to do it. I'm going to do something that brings me energy and give, that I'm passionate about till the day I die. But I wanted to know that I could, because there's a huge, mental shift that happens. And I think most people don't understand that you don't have to make a lot of money to buy your freedom back and have this killer life. I would, in a heartbeat, take, a lifestyle expense of 10,000 a month and not making more than that, than to make a higher income somewhere else, but feel like I'm on that rat race and that I have to keep my job to be able to cover my liabilities and my expenses. That to me just doesn't feel right. And then most people, their money that they are investing is tied up in the stock market in a qualified plan that they're never going to have access to. So it's almost like it doesn't exist.
Until
if you can't touch it,
Yeah.
And the government can change the age on that, which they already have. So that could be pushed back. So that, to me, it's like, why put all this money in a place where you can't use it today, when there are options for you to use it today, create cash flow so that you don't have to do a job you don't want to do? Hey, if you love your job, good for you. You're like the small minority percentage of people that actually love what they do. You may love your job, but not love how many hours you work.
Yes.
I would imagine most people don't love what they do. They don't love how many hours they work. They don't love feeling trapped. And it's a lot easier to get out of that rat race and create freedom than most people realize. $5,000 a month, $4,000 a month. That's, when you break it down to the monthly amount, it's reasonable. It's doable.
I want to get there. I actually really want to go into that, Justin, because I think it's really important for people to understand how to start to get to that first step of a couple $1,000s a month in, cash flow. But before I do, I really want to understand, what impact has this had on you as a person? You said something, you're like, I can, that feeling. Talk to me about that feeling of the peace and the fulfillment that comes with knowing I did it. I, quote, retired, and I get to do these things from now on. Did you change as a person? Did it change the way you sleep at night? Did it change your sense of peace or joy or anything like that?
Yeah, there is no doubt that it changed my mindset, my perspective, how I sleep at night, my health. I mean, the list goes on and on. It doesn't seem like it's that huge thing, but it's like a weight that gets lifted off your shoulders that you didn't even know you were carrying around. I don't know if you've ever gone and gotten an adjustment and you're like, oh my goodness, I feel so free. I was so locked up. That's what it felt like. And so to me, what it did is it gave me permission to spend my time however I wanted to, and to have no regrets, not feel bad that I'm not spending as much time in work or in this business as I'm spending with my family. And then it also gave me permission to structure my time in a way where I choose my family first. You see, I always said, hey, I pick family first, except that my calendar didn't reflect it.
Ooh.
If you really looked at it, it's like, yeah,
that's some fire right there, man. That's gonna hurt a lot of people.
Right?
And that's true. The truth will set you free. Sometimes you got to face these things.
Totally.
Yeah, you can't just say it. It's got, look at your calendar. Yeah, I'm guilty. That's happened many times. Yeah, absolutely.
The calendar's the true litmus test. You aggregate where you're spending your time. So what was neat is being able to transition and say, hey, I'm going to book all my family stuff, and then I'm going to book work stuff around it. And that's a paradigm shift. And to just be able to do life on your terms from wherever, to travel the world. I mean, we spent, one of our favorite things to do is to go travel in the summers when our daughter's off school, and we'll take 2 months and we'll go to Europe, or we'll go literally wherever. I mean, we'll go abroad. I want her to experience all these different cultures, and I want to be able to live life and make choices based on quality of life and experiences. I don't spend a lot of money on stuff. Like, I don't care about stuff, but I do care about experiences, and I do care about those experiences with the people that I love and care about most. Yeah. So my goal is to create magic moments and lifetime experiential moments with friends, family, people that I love and respect, because that to me is a greater place to invest my time and my talents, my treasures, my income, rather than toys that I'm going to get tired of at some point, at some time. And I also don't want to become a slave to the things that I own, which there's always that, like you could easily get into financial freedom and say, hey, I'm there. And then you go buy a home that's twice as much, and you're right back, where you were before. I
want to just take a moment.
I don't want that. I have no desire for that.
I want to take a moment to anchor this in, not just for myself, but for anybody listening. I have rarely come across a person like you, Justin, who really fucking gets it. You get it at a deep, deep level. You have the right philosophy that creates sustainable peace and fulfillment, and it is still saying, I value money and the freedom that it provides for me. But there are so many people spewing nonsense out there that just further deepens the wounds of how trapped people are to the game of financial freedom. Most of the blogs and thought leaders and people out there talking about this stuff like you are in my opinion, for me, are full of shit, because I look at their future and I look at the future that they're laying out for me, and it terrifies me, actually. I go, wait, you want me to shift my life to do what in order to become a slave to this now instead of that? It's just a trade-off. And the way you talk about the value of experiences, you clearly, and magic moments, you clearly have done your homework, and you've clearly experienced enough to say, I know which path is going to lead to greater freedom, greater peace of mind, greater flexibility. And so there's this sense that I want people to have of like, I started out this whole conversation by saying, there's a lot of skepticism in your industry, right? There's a lot of people who are very skeptical. And now, after talking to you for what, now almost an hour, in addition to the hours that we've talked before this, it's like, dude, you're the real deal, man. And I really want to acknowledge you for that. I really, really do. So thank you. I really mean that.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words and the compliment. I would agree that there are a lot of bad actors in the space I operate in finances and investments. And, I'm at a point in life where there's just so many cool things to experience. And I just don't want the ego trap that constantly wants to creep back in. And by the way, I still battle it. It's not like I arrived and now I don't,
Sure.
it just doesn't exist. I mean, I still actively battle where it's like, hey, I could get something nicer. I could, work a little harder at the expense of these people or that, person or that business and earn more to be able to get this, but it's an ego trap, right? Like
Yes.
there's the ego trap of having a business and that you have made something of yourself. There's the ego trap of making more money. There's the ego trap of having a really nice home, nicer than your friends or as nice as your friend's newest nicest home, or same thing with cars or travel. And I just want to be careful that the decisions I make are not out of ego, but it's really coming from a better place than that.
I couldn't agree with you more. So we were talking right before this about kind of, getting to that point of a few $1,000s a month, a couple $1,000s a month, making that first right decision, that first couple investments. Where do your leads come from today at this point? I should say, in the beginning. And where would you recommend people start today? Obviously, I think people should start with looking at your work, your book, things like that. But how does a person make that first decision of where to get started?
That's a great question. It's probably the toughest part of it all is moving from uncertainty and the unknown to just taking a step forward and making a decision to create some sort of positive results in terms of passive income. So is there one right way to do it? No, I'm not a subscriber to say that this is the way. I subscribe to the fact that there are many different ways that it can be done. And I don't really even like to live life saying, well, this is the right answer and this is the wrong answer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's clear black and white, right and wrong. But when it comes to should I do that? That's move A, and also pros and cons to that. And then, hey, if you did move C, there's just a whole nother set of pros and cons to that. So to me, it's a lot less about this is the right decision, the wrong decision. It's more like make a decision, get in the game. Once your money is exposed to an investment that you can run by smart financial people before you do it. Everyone, just find a network of people that have some expertise here and run deals by them to make sure you're not making a bad decision. But once your money is in an investment, you become way more of a student than you feel. That's when you really have the ability to learn. And sometimes the best decisions that you ever make, period, are because you lost money and you learned a lesson that's forever going to benefit you thereafter.
So say, a person was to grab your commandments and go, all right, I'm looking for my first deal that can get us close to these these constraints of these commandments as possible? Should they just kind of put the word out to their friends and community that, hey, I'm looking for deals in companies that are operating companies in real estate? Where do they really start finding those right deals?
Well, I don't think you can go wrong with a good real estate investment as long as you buy right in a good area, especially if it cash flows. So is there a way you could do it wrong? Yes. If you are brand new at this and you're buying to hopefully get appreciation, I don't recommend that. But if you buy an asset that cash flows today because you bought it at the right price and you're able to get leverage using a bank or using a seller that carries the note, and you're able to profit with cash flow every single month based on rental income that goes above and beyond the expenses and the debt service, then that is a great place to start. Because if something went wrong, there's always intrinsic value in real estate. Like real estate doesn't go to $0. Real estate doesn't become worth nothing. There's always a value in the real property or in the land or, you know, whatever it is that you're investing in. Whereas with a stock, I mean, if you just, you know, bought a certain stock, GE is a great example, or Sears or JC Penney's. I mean, these were powerhouses that went to, you know, that were, you know, part of the largest companies in the world that kind of fell out of existence. You know, not that GE has fully done that, but it used to be in the S&P 500. Now it's not even in the S&P 500. So you can have companies go out of business and you lose all your money. So I'm a big fan of real estate for that reason. And I know a lot of people love to equity invest and they say, ooh, I'm going to give, you know, 10,000 or 20,000 or 50,000 to this company because it sounds cool. And now I'm an owner of this company. But most of these companies don't make it. If they do make it, they're probably not making it for 10 to 20 years. So in essence, what you're giving is a 0% interest loan for an undetermined period of time in a high risk investment.
It's terrible.
Yes. Yes. But that's how most people do it.
That's where most people start. That's their first angel. Their angel investment is that equity investment. Yeah. Maybe a convertible note or safe or that type of situation.
And there's a time and a place for that type of investing.
Sure.
It's just not the first investment. And for me, I'm okay at this point in my career investing in things like that. In fact, I just invested in one yesterday and one today, but I can do it from my cash flow. So I'm not sacrificing anything. I'm not taking principal that I could be earning cash flow on. I mean, technically I could, but like all my expenses, all my lifestyle, everything that I need is covered. So I'm not investing money that could going towards buying my time back. I'm investing money that's above and beyond whatever it is that I need. And that is going into the risky investment.
Okay, that's very interesting. So to be specific, this is money that came as a result of the cash flow from the other investments above and beyond your lifestyle today. And you piled it up and said, I'm going to put this into these equity investments that are more speculative, or Bitcoin maybe. You know, these are more speculative type things.
Yeah. And I actually argue that Bitcoin is way less speculative than a typical friends and family or introductory investment raise. I mean, there's no, I mean, you don't really even have proof of concept yet. I mean, the odds are not good. Bitcoin at least has a proof of concept.
Good point. Good point. It can go to zero.
It's a store of value.
But it's
you can transact. It is a medium of exchange.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I love it, Justin. So as we kind of wrap this up, I'm curious if there's anything that we missed that you feel is really important to just highlight here in terms of just the overall discussion of your philosophy, your life, your journey. What do we really need to kind of hit it home with here?
Well, there's so much we could unpackage in the 10 Commandments. You know, so just if you're looking at being a lifestyle investor, the first commandment is lifestyle first. And so I want to invest in a way, and I want to teach people to invest in a way where they're not creating another job for themselves, and ultimately they're able to replace their job. So I like lifestyle first as the very first commandment because it keeps the focus on where it should be. So we're not talking about an investor's lifestyle. We're talking about a lifestyle investor. Big difference there. And then secondly, we didn't get into any of this, but this is really important as well. My second commandment is reduce the risk. And if you think about Warren Buffett, his number one rule is don't lose money. And so this is right out of the gates, the second commandment, because I want people to recognize that what is better to have happen is to not lose money and not have as good of a return than to subject yourself to a high return where you could lose money. Most people are lured into this, this appeal of like, oh, wow, that's a 20% return. Okay, yes, that's a projected 20% return, and there's a lot of risk involved. But people see it like, ooh, I've already earned this 20%. This is amazing. And you just can't look at it that way. I really think you have to look at it from a lens. My attorney always says this. He's been really good for me because I'm a glass half full kind of guy, and my attorney is a glass half empty kind of guy. And I need that to balance me out, right? Like he's skeptical of everything first. And I like that. So he's like, you need to get into a mindset where you look at things and you say, okay, why is this a bad deal? Let's go through all the reasons this is bad and all the issues and risk that this presents, and then let's disprove it. And that has been very helpful for me.
Ooh, that is such a simple but profound shift in terms of just ways of looking at deals. Like, let me look at what is weak or wrong about this and disprove it. That's a very, it's like applying science to the deal, actually.
Yep. Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, if you lose money, you first and foremost have lost the opportunity of earning income on that money. So you forever have a lost opportunity cost. But then second, you then have to work twice as hard to make that money back in the first place. So I love to invest in a way where I can protect the downside risk. So if I do lose money, it's not all of it, it's just some of it. But if things go well, then I make a very large exponential return. And I only have to get 1 out of 5 or 6 deals right to come out ahead. The whole concept of asymmetric risk reward. I want my risk to be small. I want my reward to be great. And if I stack these with a few different investments, I'm really hedging and de-risking as well. And I only need one to come into fruition to make everything right. But what if I have 2 or 3 or 4? What if I only have 1 deal go bad and 5 go well? Then it gets crazy.
Absolutely. Justin, this has been such an awesome conversation. And the problem is, or rather the opportunity, I should say, is when we can get together in person, we're going to do like a 2-hour version, 3-hour version of this and get an update from you, because this stuff is just so good. In the meantime, how can people get involved with your work? How can they support? How can they learn more?
Yeah, anyone can come visit me at justindonald.com. And, number one, I've got the book that's launching here on January 12th. So I'm really excited about that. I've got an opportunity for anyone listening to get a free book if you pay shipping. So that's one way you can do it on the website, justindonald.com. I've got an online course that I've gotten just tremendous amounts of positive feedback on, which is a very easy step in the next progression of learning and growing, and it's a super low cost. From there, I have an investors club and a mastermind that these are a little tougher to get into. It's a higher bar. But the people that are assembled in this mastermind are just brilliant people that are experts in their own industry. And it really covers virtually all industries across the board. It's really cool. And then I've got my private client coaching program where it's limited truly to, I mean, most years I really only like 4 people. I've done 6. My max is 6.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I just give a lot of one-on-one time and attention. But, obviously it's hard to hard to get accepted into that one with such limited space. But my goal is to have, and I have a podcast as well. And so, people can listen to that, The Lifestyle Investor. And so my goal is to have products that appeal to everyone. If you're a high income earner that needs, unbelievable solutions that are just off the beaten path and alternative, you have that. If you are a low income earner, but you aspire to earn more, there are products that are free or cheap that you have access to. And so my goal is to appeal to any and all types of financial, socioeconomical situations.
Well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for giving back in so many ways, because clearly you've gotten to a point where that is the next phase for you, and you're sharing the journey and you're sharing the knowledge. And I'm doing the same in a different arena. And real recognize real, man. I really appreciate you, who you are, and for everything you've done, and just the journey you're even beginning to do with the book. And I look forward to sharing this all out with people. I'm really, really excited about this episode, man. Thanks so much, Justin. I really appreciate you.
Well, thanks for having me, Arman. And I just have loved our conversation. We always just go deep right away, and we can talk about anything and everything. And, I just love mentally and intellectually stimulating conversation and people that play in that world. And so, you are tremendous from the standpoint of a thought leader and mindfulness and intentionality. And your listeners are just so lucky to have someone like you that curates great content and great guests. And so I'm just, it's an honor to be on your show. So thank you.
Thank you, bro. I really appreciate that. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Talk soon. That is a wrap, my friends. That was amazing. I hope you enjoyed. I know I did. That's what counts. No, I'm kidding. It does matter what you think. Please let me know what you thought. Shoot me a text or slide in my DMs on Instagram. I'm doing some really cool stuff on Instagram these days. You guys should be paying attention. Make sure you add me. Make sure you follow me. Make sure you follow my stories. Posting clips from the episodes. A lot of cool stuff happening in my world. And I want to know what's happening in your world. And that's the best way to connect. So hit me up on Instagram at Arman Assadi. And if you haven't left a review for the show, please do so on Apple Podcasts. That also helps a lot, and it means a lot. I love reading the feedback. You just go to the show in Apple Podcasts, scroll down, hit write a review. Don't just put the stars, but actually write something so I can see your thoughts. All right? This was fun. Until next time, peace.